9. Jan Popel. In 2018, 34-year-old schoolteacher Jennifer Porcello's life came to an early end along a highway in British Columbia. She was discovered at the scene of a car crash after her boyfriend, Jan Popel's Kia Sorento SUV, hit a light pole, initially suggesting that she died in the accident. Popel was unharmed. But Porcello's injuries weren't consistent with only having been in a crash, and indicated that she met with foul play. An investigation turned up alarming cell phone footage captured by Popel after he allegedly attacked Porcello with 2 knives, stabbing her at least 47 times. In the video, Porcello can reportedly be heard saying she loves Popel, who responded by telling the victim it was her fault, and that for months and years, all she did was disrespect and take from him. Prosecutors said that Popel made no attempts to save Porcello for over 2 hours, instead running errands and doing his banking while she lay dying in the vehicle. He then crashed the SUV. Popel apologized in court, but it meant little to Porcello's loved ones, who accused him of saying the right words but lacking the tone and emotion to go along with them. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with no parole for at least 15 years. 8. Terry and Jermichael Willis. While responding to a call at an apartment in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2018, police found 25-year-old Aisha Wallace dead from a gunshot wound. Her boyfriend, 30-year-old Jermichael Willis, told officers that she took her own life, but evidence at the scene and autopsy findings suggested that someone may have killed her, and Willis was charged with first-degree murder. A witness claimed that Jermichael's brother, 44-year-old Terry Willis, arrived at the scene before police and helped Jermichael stage a suicide by moving a gun. Terry was also accused of hiding a phone. According to the witness, Terry admitted that he knew Jermichael killed Wallace, but was helping his brother so that he wouldn't get arrested. Jermichael was convicted of second-degree murder and received a 20-year sentence, while Terry faced charges of accessory to murder and intimidating a witness. 7. Gabrielle Davies. High school football player Gabrielle Davies failed to show up for practice one day in 2022, sparking a frantic search throughout the Olympia, Washington area. Police discovered blood inside his abandoned car and the young man's shattered cell phone on the ground nearby, causing everyone to fear the worst. Just hours later, authorities announced that Davies had been safely found. They were perplexed by the fact that he had no shirt or shoes on, yet bore none of the injuries they would expect to see on someone's feet. After walking around barefoot in the wilderness, Davies was cryptic about the circumstances of his disappearance, telling investigators that he couldn't reveal what had happened to him because people connected to his captors would come after him. It was only the beginning of what would turn out to be a truly bizarre case. Shortly after finding Davies, police charged him and another young man, Justin Yoon, with murder in connection with the death of 51-year-old Daniel McCaw, which happened roughly 40 miles, 64 kilometers, from where the suspects live. Davies is accused of staging his disappearance to evade charges in the case. McCaw was found shot and stabbed to death in his home. It was later determined that he had dated Davies' mother, and that the couple had split up just weeks before his murder. Surveillance footage from McCaw's home allegedly shows the suspects crawling in through a doggy door on the day of the crime. They were also seen leaving the house with several items. During an investigation into Davies' disappearance, investigators found a spent shell casing in his bedroom. At the time, they were unaware of McCaw's death, but they ultimately put 2 and 2 together. In addition to the mounting evidence against Davies, his father reportedly called law enforcement and implicated his son in McCaw's death, but accused the victim's biker buddies of threatening Davies. Both suspects are being held on $1 million bail, while facing charges of first- and second-degree murder, burglary, and unlawful possession of firearms. 6. Payal Batti. In 2022, a young woman named Hema Chowdhury went missing just outside India's capital of New Delhi in the city of Noida. Her family filed a report as soon as they noticed her unusual absence. That same day, a 22-year-old woman named Payal Batti wrote a farewell note to her family and left it at their house in the nearby village of Badpura. At the scene, the family found the body of a woman whose face had been disfigured. She was wearing Batti's clothes and, from what anyone could tell, looked like the young woman. And the family suspected no different as they cremated her and went ahead with funeral plans. But details about the case didn't quite add up to investigators, who found Batti and her boyfriend, Ajay Thakur, alive and well, roughly 30 miles, 48 kilometers from where she supposedly took her own life. The pair had even gotten married. As they dug deeper into the case, detectives discovered that Batti had befriended Hima Chowdhury at a shopping mall where she worked in the time leading up to her disappearance. They believe that Batti specifically chose Chowdhury because they looked somewhat similar in appearance, with plans to kill her and use her body to stage the suicide. Which is exactly what Batti and Thakur are accused of doing before they ran off to start a new life together. It's believed that Batti was motivated to commit the crime because she blamed her brothers for the death of her parents several months earlier and wanted revenge, but was afraid of retaliation from them. So she planned to get retribution anonymously, and probably when they least expected it, when they believed she was dead. But her plan fell apart, and she now faces a murder charge. 5. Mark Brown. 34-year-old British escort Alexandra Morgan vanished in 2021 after traveling to a remote farm in East Sussex to meet a man who sought her services online. When her remains were discovered, all that was left were some charred bone fragments and teeth. Someone had burned her body in an oil drum. While investigating Morgan's disappearance and death, detectives zeroed in on a man named Mark Brown as their prime suspect. They learned that Brown's girlfriend, 33-year-old Leah Ware, had gone missing just months earlier. No sign of her has ever been found, but law enforcement believes that she met a similar end to Morgan, who was locked in a shipping container and kept alive for a certain amount of time before being murdered and burned. Morgan saw Brown several times before things turned deadly. When she disappeared, she had planned a 3-day meeting with him and was expecting a generous payout for it. Her family didn't know she was an escort, so they thought she was with friends. But they knew something was terribly wrong when she failed to return for her 2 children. While looking into both cases, police found surveillance footage showing that Brown picked up his missing girlfriend's prescriptions for months after she vanished to make it appear as though she was still alive. He also made transactions with Ware's bank accounts as part of the attempted cover-up. Brown is currently on trial for 2 murder charges and has not yet revealed the location of Ware's body, despite the urging of her family and the judge. 4. Leslie Moonves. In 2017, a woman went to the Los Angeles Police Department to report that former CBS chief Leslie Moonves had assaulted her back in the 1980s. The complaint came amid the Me Too movement that ushered in a new era of credibility toward assault survivors who had long become accustomed to being victim-blamed and not taken seriously. But just hours after the report against Moonves was filed, an LAPD captain, who's also a former member of Moonves' security detail, contacted a CBS executive directly and warned them. In a voicemail, the captain said that the case was confidential, but encouraged them to call him back. In 2022, the New York Attorney General's office released a report accusing the LAPD captain and CBS employees of conspiring to cover up the case. The report claims that the LAPD provided CBS with case updates, personal details about the accuser, and a copy of her complaint. CBS executives used the information to research the accuser and her family. Both parties are accused of taking measures to downplay the gravity of the allegations. and the LAPD captain reportedly reassured CBS that the department took efforts to prevent the press from obtaining the report against Moonves. In one message obtained by Attorney General Letitia James, Moonves said that hopefully they could figure out what the complainant wants. The findings revealed that the allegations were kept hidden from CBS regulators, shareholders, and the public for 8 months. In the meantime, a high-ranking stakeholder who knew about the case sold 160,000 shares of the company in case the story broke and its value plummeted. The LAPD claims that the captain who informed CBS of the report was the only employee involved in the cover-up, and that the rest of the department was unaware of the scheme. After the details were leaked to the press, Moonves denied the allegations. Both he and CBS have dished out millions in compensation to shareholders and others for misleading investors and to right other past wrongs that the company is accused of. 3. David Stradley. David Stradley was one of the many people who were charged in 2020 with trying to fraudulently obtain COVID relief funds. He was put on an electric monitoring device while awaiting the next step of his case, which included allegations that he attempted to bilk the U.S. government out of more than $500,000. 3 weeks after his arrest, the 54-year-old cut off his monitoring device, delivered suicide notes to his mother and various other family members and friends, and drove to the ocean in Massachusetts. His car was found abandoned near the shoreline with his wallet and a suicide note inside. A search and rescue boat was dispatched to look for his body. While some of Stradley's relatives believed he had taken his own life, some suspected that it was part of a scheme he had concocted to avoid accountability for his alleged financial crimes. They were right. Stradley was alive, and he eluded law enforcement for nearly 2 months before U.S. Marshals captured him in Georgia. During his time on the run, he changed his phone number multiple times and used numerous identities and different license plates in an effort to avoid detection. He managed to slip away for long enough for authorities to actually wonder, at times, if he had actually taken his own life. But they caught up with him, and the stunt earned him extra charges on top of the ones he was already facing for fraud. Stradley pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bank fraud and failing to appear in court, and was sentenced to over 4 years in federal prison. 2. William Anthony Spivey. William Anthony Spivey resigned from his duties as the chief of the Chowdbourne, North Carolina Police Department in 2021, amid dozens of misconduct allegations. At the time, he was facing over 70 felony charges, including evidence mishandling, drug trafficking, and embezzlement. In early 2022, Spivey failed to return from a fishing trip. His vehicle and boat were found abandoned at a boat landing on the Lumber River in Columbus County. At the scene, investigators found several letters and a rifle containing a discharged round. Friends and family members reportedly described Spivey's disappearance as a possible suicide, but detectives determined that the evidence was inconsistent with someone taking their own life. Further investigation indicated that the scene was likely staged, and authorities would later admit that they immediately doubted the suicide claims, given Spivey's history of trying to dodge a court appearance with a fraudulent note stating that he had COVID-19. During a search that cost taxpayers upward of $64,000, law enforcement tracked Spivey to a relative's home at an apartment complex in Loris, South Carolina. In addition to the charges he was already facing, he was slapped with additional counts for trying to stage his suicide, including obstruction of justice. 1. Sahoon. A South Korean man named Lee Dae-jun was on a fishing boat roughly 6 miles, 10 kilometers from the North Korean border when he mysteriously vanished in 2020. His boat was found, but he was nowhere in sight while South Korean authorities searched for him. In the meantime, a North Korean patrol vessel found Lee in a life jacket and shot him dead a few hours after questioning him. There are conflicting stories about the circumstances leading up to the 47-year-old's bizarre death. South Korean officials said that the North Koreans burned Lee's body at sea, presumably as a COVID-related safety measure. Then President Moon Jae-in's staff concluded that Lee was trying to defect to North Korea due to gambling debts and personal issues. Moon's successor, current President Yoon Suk-yeol, reversed the finding and accused the previous administration of walking on eggshells around North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un's regime. Lee's family also doesn't believe that he died trying to defect. Yoon's officials also claim that previous investigators made no meaningful effort to rescue Lee, even after learning that he was spotted in North Korean waters. They suspect former South Korean National Security Advisor Sahoon of ordering the destruction of intelligence reports about Lee's death. Suh, on the other hand, has accused Yoon's administration of political retaliation, and Moon has described the allegations as unfounded. Whatever the case, Lee's disappearance and death remain largely a mystery, leaving his loved ones without answers or closure. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get blamed for a coworker's misconduct in an elaborate workplace cover-up, or taken into custody and questioned because of your uncanny resemblance to a wanted criminal? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.